Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Chrysalis, where we're trying to rediscover what motherhood is all about as we're in that caterpillar phase sometimes. But how do we get to that butterfly? How do we fly, and discover our passion? That's what we're here really to talk about today is how do we embrace who we really want to be? And that just sounds like that question is so overwhelming. Like, what do you want to do? What do you think, Lucy?
Well, it's funny because it's a question that we always seem to have an answer to when we were kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? There was we didn't hold back. We would say, I mean, I can remember my youngest wanting to be a rock star hockey playing doctor. He would share his ideas enthusiastically. And I think we stopped doing that at some point in time, especially for those of us that chose motherhood because what we want to be that kind of gets defined for us when you become a mother. Your purpose is making sure you get this little child into adulthood, and I've been I've been through that phase. And my kids are my they're older and they're starting there, they're having to decide who do they want to be. So it's a really interesting position to be in, but at the same time, I'm re-examining who I want to be now that my role as mom has changed.
Well, I love that, but I also and I've actually was planning this earlier today with the idea of just like how to dream big again. Like we were able
Yeah.
as a kid to like see the stars, right? And reach for the stars. And all of a sudden now it's like, okay, well, reality has to set in and you're like, I can't do more than what I can see. I think that's part of it is when we start putting ourselves around other moms or other people who have done things that we want to do, then we can start to see the possibilities. But again, that dreaming phase is kind of hard, like, oh well, this is where I'm at now, and this is where I'll be. But then what's the next phase for us? And I'm struggling just to see that for myself as well. But I think being around people like you and people who are doing these things, that I'm starting to be that person and see those possibilities of what I really want to do, and bringing connecting mamas together into fruition. But I think that's where it starts is how do we dream again?
And that's it. Is you said something you said something really important. You said reality kicks in. And I think that's one of those myths that society's put on us. Is like all of a sudden you got to put your big girl panties on, you got to set your dreams aside, and you got to live in reality. And that's when we have to question, well, who says what that reality is? And really, we're the ones that get to decide. We get to decide what our reality is. Yes, you can't all of a sudden be that hockey playing doctor rock star. It takes time. Those things come with their own journeys, but at least it gives you something to align to. Ask yourself, what are those things that light you up? Where do you find true joy? Not happiness, because happiness is something different than joy. And I think that's really where the question begins, is what do you love to do?
That is like the first question, and I think that is hard because, especially as a mom, it was always like for me, it was like, well, what my kids want to do, and I was looking at the things that they want to do and trying to make sure everyone around me was getting to do the things they want to do that I forgot, and without even realizing was, I mean, well, not necessarily realizing, but starting to feel a bit resentful for it, like, oh, I don't get, haven't been doing anything, but it's like I also didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't have anything
which
like.
is which is okay. It's okay to not know. And we also have to acknowledge that, yeah, when you have kids at home, typically it is, I'm going to throw it out there, 80 to 90% of the mom's responsibility. That's just the way things go. So we don't actually have a whole lot of time, but that doesn't mean that we stop thinking about ourselves and what we want. That's where you can migrate to go back to, well, what do you love to do? What lights you up? And if right now, for the longest while, I knew two things about myself. one, that I really thrived in authentic conversation, like the things that we're doing here every week. That lights me up. I also have a creative side, and I've dabbled in different forms of creative writing. I never really knew how those things were all going to come together, but I just kept coming back at them. You know, I launched the Roller Coaster of Midlife podcast that now has over 300 episodes. And by doing that, it has led to other things like meeting you and having the conversations with you every week. So when you look at what lights you up, become curious and start to follow some of those threads, because you don't know where it's going to take you. You may decide, I really don't like that. But then it may
That's
be
okay.
like, no, this is really where my heart is ignited. And this is where I want more of this. And then you can deeper and follow that and just see where it takes you.
Well, it's funny you're saying that. So the last, I don't know, 12 days or so, I've been trying to do 3 things every day. And I had not been taking my morning walks. And I realized that that was something that I just needed to do to get my day started. So I've been trying to, and honestly, I gotta say, I haven't taken them all first thing in the morning, but so far I've taken a walk every single day. And I think just getting that fresh air. But the funny thing is, the third thing that I wanted to do was actually play guitar for 10 minutes a day. Because for me, I've always felt like music has not quite been my thing. Like if I hear a song, like I'll recognize certain song stuff, but I can never remember words. I feel like I'm tone deaf. But
I'm
like I
with you
always
on
have
that.
this, I've always had this pull to play the guitar. Like no matter when, like, and even my husband a while back, even before we had kids, bought me a guitar. But then I got into this mode where I'm left-handed and it was right-handed guitar. And what do I do? And then the guitar went off into the garage. And then I was talking to a couple people who play guitar, and they're like, just play right-handed. It really doesn't matter. Like you do enough stuff, it's not going to make a difference. Like and most of the stuff is right-handed. So I started doing that. And so it's just a matter of getting it back out and saying something like doing. So the kids have been playing with it and stuff too, and just doing those things and start figuring out the things that you want to do. And I have no idea why the guitar always kept coming back in my head. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. That's not something I can do. But we're going to give it a try and see how it goes. Like you said, just be curious with it and see where it leads.
And I mean, maybe playing the guitar is only ever something that you do for yourself. That sort of meditative time where
Yes.
you just get to go in, and if that's all it is, great. It's something that you love to do and you're getting a benefit from it. And it all of these things start to shape who it is that we want to become. And I know for me, when I really started to dive into this journey, I guess we're getting on for over 6 years now, I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue. I knew what I didn't want.
That's
And
easy.
that can also be a really good place, is what you don't want in your life. And then that can then show you what you do want in your life. And I mean, for me, it's been a long journey, and things have unfolded and things have taken directions that I never would have imagined. But I just kept coming back to it. And, you said there's 3 things that you want to do every day. And I think it's important as women, as mothers, that we do have that sacred self time every day, and that we do the things that anchors us. And for me, that time is spent focusing on that future vision of myself and my journaling practice. And that encompasses meditation, yoga, those types of things. But, really having that sacred time and putting that focus on who it is that you want to be, I think that's really where you start to see the shift.
Well, I love how you said focusing on who you want to be, because it's what does that person do every day? And those are the things that you start doing. And for me, it was looking at, I kept being consistent for everyone around me but myself. And so me doing those
Mhm.
3 things a day was more just me saying yes to myself and saying, I'm going to show up consistently for you, whether other people care or not. It's me just saying yes to me. And so the third thing that I was doing is just doing a reel every day. More so, if no one watches it, doesn't matter. It was more that I'm just starting to be consistent and showing up for myself, saying this is something I'm going to do. And especially in the days I'm like, I really don't want to do this. I don't feel like doing it. But I think the only thing, it's not necessarily a feeling, it's just that we take those actions, and those actions of showing ourselves that we can do these things is really that you show up and say yes to yourself. And then you're going to start becoming, you're seeing that future vision of yourself. And those are the actions that are going to take you towards that person. And I think that's what it comes down to, is figuring out what we want, is to start seeing that person and discovering the possibilities of what that person can be. And then what actions do we need to take to become that person, and start just saying, I am that person and I'm taking these actions and I'm that person.
And another really important thing that we can do, and you alluded to this earlier, and that's by the people that we bring into our lives and the relationships that we have, is look for the people that are living life how you want to be. Those sort of expander people, those people that are showing us what's possible and what can be done. They may only be a couple of steps ahead of you, but it's somebody that's doing what you want to do. And then there's other expanders where there are like leaps and bounds from where you are, but you can still learn from them. You can still go back and see what they've done. But having those role models, I think it's something we forget to do. Or maybe there's part of us that, doesn't want to go down that road because we think we're being envious or, jealous or anything like that. But look for the people in your life, or that are in the, the greater world. Look for those people that are doing what you're doing. Maybe you don't like everything that they're doing, but they're examples of what you can do. And as soon as you start to introduce that and you become active and looking for expanders in your life, then what it basically does is it tells your subconscious mind that you can do it too. And you start to get it. That's where you get into the neuroprogramming and all of that sort of really sciencey stuff. But yeah, surround yourself with those examples of people that are doing it.
Well, as you're saying with the neural stuff, and then the RAS system where you start activating what you see. Because I mean, same thing when
Yeah.
you buy that new car, you start seeing that car everywhere. Well, if you start doing that with the activities, you start training your brain how to keep doing those things over and over. And I think I love how you say find the people, because also if you feel like you're in a big struggle, like say your morning routines are completely off and you feel like that's a big struggle for you, well, looking at other people who have that not be their problem, who have kind of worked through that already, and looking at ideas from them. And again, like you said, we get scared with that envious feeling, but it's not necessarily that envious feeling. Going with a curious mind of what can I learn from them, instead of
Yeah.
feeling, oh, they have it all figured out. Well, they probably have some other problem that you could help them with or whatever. But it's like it's more that helping each other feeling and being curious about how did they do it, instead of saying, oh, well, they have it, I can never have that. And I think that's where the Facebook um, comparison always comes in, like, oh, well, they have that, I can't have that. But what you could ask is, how did they do that?
How did they
And
do
start
that?
getting
Yeah.
questioning and saying, is that something that I can do in my house? Or maybe it's not. And maybe I need someone else. And that's why when you say, like, for instance, morning routine, look at different morning routines and what one sounds like it's more realistic and possible for your household.
Yeah. What sort of sprung to mind is when we were little kids, it would be like, you remember, we'd be like, oh, you're such a copycat. I think that's what's sort of
My
springing
kids
to
do
my
that too.
mind. I couldn't find the right words, when I was talking about it earlier, but I think that's what I think we're afraid to do. And I would also encourage you to start a list of who's the expander in your life. Who are those people that you can learn from? And write down their name and write down what aspect is really resonating with you. And then, like you said earlier, you're going to start to notice it more. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have more of these people coming into your life, and you're going to see somebody, you're going to hear something, and you're going to think, oh, yeah, that's it. They're putting into words what it is I want for myself. So you just add that person, that name, and what it is that they're bringing. You add that to your list. And soon you're going to see you've got a really, really long list of mentors and people that can help guide you in different aspects of your journey.
And guide you in, like, again, the big question, what do you enjoy doing? And like you said, it's okay if you don't have the answers right now, and that is okay. But the one thing you don't want to do is say, I will never know. It's just, all we're saying right now is just turn on that curiosity and start saying,
Yeah.
what are some of the things I like doing? Add that to your list too. You could have a list of people who are supportive, and you can have a list of things that you start to notice that as your kids are doing something, is it something all of a sudden you're like, oh, that looks like fun. when you have that thought, those are the types of things you want to write down. And also watching your kids a lot, because their eyes light up so much more than ours. Let's get some of their curiosity back, because we lost that somewhere along the route, and we got into reality as we were talking about earlier. But reality of what? There's so many more possibilities out there when we look for them and we start to see them, that can become our reality if we allow it and we start that dreaming process again. I think that's what it's coming down to is as Lucy was saying, is making that list of the people, but then also let's start making lists of those possibilities of dreams. And then how do they come together? Because when we have the people help us see those dreams, then we see those possibilities. Go back to the 4-minute mile. No one could run it before until they saw someone else do that. All of a sudden, months later, there's more people running it. And the same thing with us is we can do that if we support each other and being out there to help each other rather than say, oh, well, I'm doing this better than you are.
Well, I mean, yeah, we're all at different points of our journey. And you can't compare, Michelle, you can't compare where you are with where I am. We're in completely different situations. Our kids are different ages. There's so many things that go into it. You can't compare yourself to somebody else. Even two identical twins, you cannot compare their lives or journeys because they're individuals and they each have a life to live. And I think that's what we have to really, have self-compassion for, is acknowledging where we are. And sure, every decision that we've made has brought us to this point, but hey, it's got us this far. you know
Exactly.
sure, you may need to make changes and look for where you want to improve, learn, and grow.
Well, I love how you say that, but and then the other thing that I want to point out, because this is one of my biggest struggles, so that's why I'm going to point it out, is because this is a lifelong journey. Like it's not just going to end.
Yeah.
The point that I want to part that sorry, struggling talking this morning too, is that we need to stop though and celebrate the little moments. And that's something that I struggle with, as well as that we're always just like, okay, well, let me get to the next point. Okay, I got here, let me get to the next point. But we need to take some pauses and slow down just a bit and look at what are some of the things that we are doing, and to celebrate that. Because when we do those celebrations and we bask in that for a moment, that tells our brain also, like, there's more coming. We can keep doing this. We can keep moving forward with these ideas. And I know that has been one of my biggest struggles, is just taking that pause to say, yes, I did that.
And be excited. I've been struggling trying to get my ideas together about this one component of something I'm putting together, a course. And I was really struggling with it for a while. And then all of a sudden, I had clarity, everything fell into place, and I became really, really excited for the project. And I shared that in my journaling. As I shared, I'm excited and why I'm excited, and I'm proud. And I allowed myself to sit in that,
I love
because,
that.
as you said, then you get even more excited. And I don't care if anyone's excited for me. I'm excited for me. And that's what matters.
I
It's
think
and that's when you
that's what it
go
is.
between the internal world and the external world. Is if you can't be excited for yourself, then other people being excited for you will never satisfy you.
Well, I mean, that is so true, because I mean, you have to really put that out there yourself, and that's why I'm saying pause and express the journey along the way. Like, for instance, I was struggling yesterday. Um, I I'm going to say that I'm proud that my son and I are published authors together in a book called the
Yay.
Parenting Handbook, and I just did the same thing with my daughter in the Voices of Women. So now we actually have our Amazon author pages. I'm like, oh, this is something I've always wanted. Yet I have that, not that celebration mode in the back. I'm like, well, it's still not my own book yet. Like, still like the doubt and the things going on in my
Uh,
head.
you're still, yeah, you're hinging it on, like, well, you're saying, well, it's not that big of a deal. I keep going back to the voices when we were little kids, those little girls, and how we can be mean. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. But it's like, no, it is a big deal. You wanted to do it and you did it. And, congratulations.
And so working on celebrating that, and then getting some of the things, like people bought the book and people are excited about it. I'm like, okay, take that in. But again, like you're saying, if you don't feel the celebration, it's even if other people are telling you congratulations, it doesn't until you can internalize that. And that's why I think we need to work. I mean, I know I need to work on that a bit. It's just like bringing in that celebration a bit and just pausing, going, yes, we did this. And like not stressing necessarily about the next thing right away, but just taking that pause. Because I know that I haven't done that as much. So today I was just trying to do that a little bit more and just not rush so much into the next thing that I need to do and just say, I've accomplished something and I'm proud of it. And I think the more we do that, the more we start to go towards that purpose, those things that we want, and we start to see what is important to us. And it's funny how you were saying creative writing and everything. And like we are so similar in the things that we aspire to do.
Yeah, and a lot of us, we've gained a lot of wisdom. We've learned a lot as mothers. I mean, you're helping form the future of two, well, for me, two human beings. You have three. There's a lot to be learned. You make mistakes, absolutely, but that's where you learn. And I think a lot of us reach a point where we're like, no, we want to share this wisdom.
I agree. I agree so much because for so long it felt like we need to do this alone and I
Yeah.
need to do it right and I need to be perfect and
I
Pinteresty
was just gonna
and
say there's that perfectionism. And
yeah,
all of everything that you've said between not being able to celebrate yourself and perfectionism, they all can't come down to the exact same root cause that I believe every single human being on the face of the planet has struggled with at some point in time. And that's with I am not enough.
yes, or I'm not worthy.
We all struggle with that in one way or another. And all of those things where you're saying is that's what you're still butting up against is, you know, those things, but now you know what they are, you can acknowledge them. And those little things that you start to do, that's when you're going to start to see the magic.
I agree. It's just it's and we keep looking at like the big picture everything, but also we need to break it down to the daily picture and just each decision or each thought that we have at a time and the more we can reframe each one or just for me today like taking that pause and really honing in on that celebration, the more I keep doing that, then the more I'm going to start to see it. And again, we're turning it's that neural going back to the neural pan.
Oh, I can never remember the name of it. It's something reactivator or
Oh,
something.
it's the RAS, the
Yeah,
rack.
yeah,
But I was thinking about just like the neural system as we're I mean, our bodies are conditioned to be negative because we were in survival mode. I mean,
yeah.
we had physical features outside of us that we don't have anymore. And so we've turned those into stress and other things. And so we have to make conscious choices to change that frame of thought and to do that to make them more automatic. But each time in that process, it just takes time to every thought. The more you do it, the more you're going to change from that negative to oh, I can do this and reframe it. And it's just each day we just have to keep reframing it. It's not like one and done. I did that. I finished. It's just it's a choice each day to become that person that you're envisioning.
And yet, we have to realize that wherever we start this process in our life, you know, you're rewriting programming that has been there for 30, 40, 50 years. You're not going to just overwrite it. Like I said, my journey started 6 years ago. And there are some things, especially with dealing with I'm not enough. It's taken me nearly 6 years. And now, because of some of the things I'm bringing into my life, I realized I'm not questioning, am I good enough for this? It's just well, of course I'm doing this. And, that's taken a lot of work for me to get there. And it's not just, like you say, it's not one and done. I put it down to my daily practice that I've had for the last 6 years, and the constant inner work and really working on why do I think what I think and why am I doing what I'm doing, and then going in deeper and looking for those ways. Okay, well, if that's no longer serving me, what do I need to replace it with?
I love that. And I just go back to the idea of thinking like it is so much easier to say, I'm done. This is too hard.
Yeah.
And it just it is. I mean, it's easier to just say, okay, well, I'm not going to bother having that thought process anymore. I'm just going to go on autopilot again. And so those are all choices. And to realize that the automatic response of a human is to say, yes, it's easier. I'm done. I give up. But it's again then making that reaffirmation and making those decisions each day to just, even if you have gone off the wagon, or say this 13 days where I've been trying to do these three things for myself, if tomorrow it doesn't happen, what do I do the next day? Do I say, oh, well, because I gave up yesterday, I'm just going to stop? Those are all decisions that we have to think about. And it's always easy when we start something, but when something goes wrong, how do we get back? How do we get back going? And
And
it's going to happen.
yeah, and it's just because you fall off the wagon one day doesn't mean you can't get back on it on the next day.
Exactly.
So, so you didn't do it yesterday. Okay, shit happened. You're going to have another go at it today. And
And
it's
so
like, building my course. I have been picking this up and putting it down for the better part of 4 years. I've been looking for different ways to put it together in an engaging and unique format so that it could stand out. It's taken me this long just to get the clarity that I needed, but I kept picking it back up. Yeah, I'd have to put it down when I would get frustrated and it just wasn't working, it wasn't coming together. But then I'd give it a bit of time, pick it back up, and I'd go at it again. And then finally now it's just all of a sudden everything makes sense. Everything makes sense, and I can see the clear path. That's not to say that there's not still going to be obstacles and challenges. I just have clarity now, and it took 4 years.
I think that's part of what I was at too. Like we keep looking at time frames, and I'm like, okay, well, I've been at this for a while, and I'm not to where I thought I would be by this timeline, but I'm still so much further than I would have been if I had not kept moving forward. And
Yeah.
I think that's where the importance of the celebration comes in, because we're marking those milestones. And yes, and it might not be exactly where we thought we're going to be, but you can start to see the progress that you're making as a person, and the way that your journey needs to go. And maybe certain things take you longer, but then you kind of have to work through all the muck of it. And that's kind of where, as we're wrapping up, leads me back to the idea of like the connection of it all, is because when we're going through these, and like Lucy and I coming together to have these conversations, it's so much easier for me. Like she said, one of the things she loves is genuine conversations. I do too. And I think that helps with getting through the muck of the mind. And so that's what led me to want to create Connecting Mamas, is because I want to provide that safe space for other moms who have not necessarily experienced that, and want to have that place and that freedom to explore that without the feeling of judgment. Because I feel like it's trying to find those right people. When you decide that you want to make that change and you want to grow, I just personally know people around you don't necessarily want to do that as well. And
Yeah.
so that can hold you back, as all of a sudden you start to like feel, oh, I can see some purpose coming out. I can see all this happening. All of a sudden you're like, it puts you back in your shell when the people around you don't feel the same way. At the same time, you don't want to force something on someone who's not ready. And so it's a matter of finding, like Lucy and I connecting, or, find the right people to connect to have those conversations. And that's why we even want to do these lives and start bringing this out, because we're like, we're not the only ones who feel this way. And the more we get this out there, the more we start to connect more people together who can have these conversations. I think just the more the dynamics will change overall with families and the world, and just the shift that we're looking for to have more openness and authenticity.
And the only person that we should be comparing ourselves to is the person that we were yesterday.
Yes. And you start to see the progress of where you were. Because again,
Yep.
we keep saying it's small millimeter, but if you keep going this way, I mean, you're not going to go straight. If you just keep going this way, you're going to keep going forward, but you're going to go into a completely different direction without even realizing it. So if you look 2 years from now, where you're at, again, a lot of us compare months and weeks and 1 year, right? But we don't see 3 years from now where we would be if we just stayed the same, or if we just start taking small movements forward, what 3 years from now would look like. And so when you're really visualizing that person you want to be, start with like at least 3 years from now. Give yourself some time, because it is a process. And there are going to be days you're going to go, I'm not doing this. And that's okay, because we are human. But then after you get that chance to rest, it's the day after. Did you pick it back up? Yes, I did. And that's how you keep moving forward.
Well said. Well said.
On that note, remind everyone how we can get a hold of you, Lucy.
The best place to reach out to me is by my website, therollercoasterpodcast.com. And from there, you can listen to all of my previous.
I think you broke up a little bit, Stephanie. Sorry, not Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie, for chiming in. Lucy, can you do it one more time? Sorry. And Stephanie just said thank you. So I love seeing you today on, Stephanie.
Oh,
just tell us
my website
your
is
website
the
one more
roller
time.
coaster
You broke
podcast.
up.
Okay,
The roller coaster
podcast.
Thank you. We'll get this. And
Yeah,
for
it's
those
gone
you
all
can find
squiffy on us.
You can find me on connectingmamas.com, and I do not have it up yet on the actual website, but on my Facebook site, I do have links to the book, the Parenting Handbook, and also Voices of Women 2023, which both have chapters of each one of my kids in them as well. And coming up at the end of the month on the 27th, I believe we'll be doing it under Women's Circle. I'm going to start doing those more often, but chance for us just to get together and really figure out how do we want to grow, and providing that space for you. And again, if you need any one-on-one coaching at all, come check us out too as well. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.